Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Pastor JR. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Thursday night. Now, if you haven't tuned in the past couple of weeks, what you've been doing, stop the video right now, go watch the other videos and get all caught up. But we've been talking about different careers that you can get into when you get older. So without further ado, we have somebody very special, somebody familiar. Maybe you might recognize her, but can we give it up real quick for Miss Jackie Biggins? So Jackie, a lot of people might not know what you do. They might know you from serving in church and the different places that you served in church. But what exactly is it that you do on a regular day basis for work?
So I'm a graphic designer, and I'm a graphic designer for a credit union, pretty known credit union, but I'm also working for myself now. I have my own business. So yeah, I do photography, I do flyers, I do any logos, anything. So
I don't think a lot of people realize how much graphic design affects our culture, how much it's around us.
yeah.
Even here in the church, there's a sign, there's something that'll lead you or guide you to do a certain thing. And so for you, how important do you feel like graphic design is to our culture?
It's important. Like, it's one of the elements that kind of moves us in any direction of what we want to do. Like, I'm very influenced if I look at, say it's like a bottle of soda. I go based off of the design. That's just me because I'm a creative. Like, oh, I like that logo, I'm going to take that one. Or I like just, it's like the same if you look at a flyer for an event. I'm not going to go if your flyer looks whack.
Trash.
But,
Yeah.
But if it looks like inviting, I'm going to go. So I think it's very important to the culture because it shifts people's mind of like what you want them to do. In a way, it's kind of manipulation, but not really.
Yeah.
But it shapes, how we view things and how we want to navigate life. So I think it's important.
It's cool. So I heard the key word that I like to hear: being a creative, being somebody that knows how to do a bunch of different things creatively. Were you always creative? Was it something that maybe you kind of learned how to be? Do you always feel like you were the artsy kid? Like, Mom, look at my Thanksgiving turkey. Like, were you that kid or what?
I don't know. I probably wouldn't pin myself as a creative kid. I think I was more athletic than I was creative. But I think that's just a family thing. My family is an athletic family. So it was kind of instilled in me to go and play basketball and volleyball and do all those things. And then on the side, yes, I liked to color and yes, I liked to do all those things, but I didn't think that was me. It was just a part of me, not like who I am completely. But I was that kid that always had like 2 coloring books and that big old box of crayons with a sharpener in the back.
Yeah.
That was me. I always brought that even when we went on like family trips or it was my brother's basketball game and I didn't really want to watch the game, so I brought like things to draw or whatever. But I wish I knew like then what I know now that was something that was me. I just was thinking this is something to do, to keep my mind busy or whatever. But I don't know. I don't think I would pin myself as a creative kid. I did what I liked doing.
So I know for me, like even though I lean more towards music and kind of sound, I took 3 years of art in high school. Like, I took graphic design in high school. It's like, did you take art in high school as an elective?
I took a Photoshop class when I was in elementary school.
What? What school did you go to?
It was Solano Christian Academy.
Okay.
And, it was just, I think, an elective or something that we can just do. And my best friend's mom was the teacher at the time. And she was just doing it as like a filler. Like, she wasn't an official teacher. She was just there because she knew the program. And I remember I just loved like painting in Photoshop because that's pretty much all she was teaching us, not anything major. But I remember taking that class and I was like, this is cool. But again, at that time, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, this is kind of cool. And then I took photography and a Photoshop class again in high school. But then again, it was just an elective for me to get the credit and move on. I wasn't thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do or this is going to be a part of my life. Again, it was something that I liked doing. Didn't think anything of it at the time. Yeah.
So at what point do you think that switch kind of turns where I think I want to do this? Because most schools don't offer a graphic design major, talking about college, for instance. Most schools don't really have a tremendous art program at every single school that you go to. What is the process in which you became a graphic designer? Like, I know you went to a particular school. Can you tell us more about that?
So I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was in high school. I felt like we all were. We're in a bubble, and we're like protected by this bubble. I'm like, I can do whatever I want in this time and not have to worry about life after this, because when that time comes, that's when I'll deal with it. And that's pretty much what I did. So everyone was getting all these acceptance letters in senior year. I was like, I didn't think about it. I didn't really care at the time. So right when I graduated and I went to Solano for my 2 years just to get my general ed done, like, I was smart about that. Like, if I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm going to at least get this part done. Yeah. So I remember going to Solano and I took like an aptitude test, and I took it twice because the first time I was like, I don't know if this is true. But I took it twice, and they both said be a creative, some type of creative arts. It didn't necessarily say like graphic designer. It just said creative arts in any way I wanted to be. So I was like, but what? And that was like what was bothering me. I didn't know what. And knowing me, I always like knowing exactly, like, give me a direct sign. I don't want to have to guess. So the entire time I'm like, God, what is it? I just want you to straight up tell me, what am I supposed to be? Because I don't want to be here in a third year at Solano not knowing what I want. So I just remember, I don't know what triggered me, but I was like, I'm going to take myself out of Solano and I'm going to go figure this out. So I took myself out. I didn't tell my parents. I took myself out of Solano and I enrolled into International Academy of Design and Technology. I just one day Googled graphic design schools or art schools. And that one was close because it was in Sacramento. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to look into this. So as I pulled all my research and pulled myself out of Solano, then I told my mom, like, this is what I'm going to do. And surprisingly, she didn't flip out. She was just like, okay, let's do this. So we went and we checked out the place, and I got enrolled. I was accepted, and I did a year and a half of it. And I graduated with my degree within a year and a half because it's a trade school. Yeah. So you don't have a summer, you don't have a holiday break. It's just you have, I think it's like 6 weeks or 10 weeks, and then you have a week off, and then you go back. So yeah, it was tough, but I got it all done, and I graduated right when I turned 21. So I was juiced. Like, I got this done, and then I had my 20s to really just be doing whatever. But it took me a while to really accept, like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, because I really wanted a direct sign from God. And that's when I learned you're not always going to get that. You're not always going to get a direct verbatim, God said this. He's going to
be a graphic designer.
Yeah. He's going to give you the path to go on, but you have to, like, really pay attention to who's speaking into you to encourage you, like, no, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Because I had plenty of people like, no, do this. I'm like, okay. And then when I did it, I'm like, I'm happy that I did it. So, yeah.
So for you, I mean, obviously, like with sports, you have statistics and you have accomplishments and championships and all these different things. What do you feel like has been maybe some of your creative accomplishments, maybe even like favorite projects you've done? Like, if I were to put this on the Jackie Mount Rushmore of greatest projects, like, what are those for you?
One off the top of my head was an employee newsletter that I did for my previous job. And I remember, like, this particular newsletter, it could be anything you wanted. It didn't have to fit into the branding of the company. So I got free reign to make it whatever. And it was really employee question based. So the first one that I got, this was my very first, like, edition that I made that I loved so much. To this day, it's like one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And the question to the employees was, what is on your summer playlist? I'm like, if you know me, my first one, like, I get to choose the question. I'm like, I'm going to make it about music. So I asked the company, I'm like, okay, what would you put on your summer playlist? And then I turned the newsletter, it was like a booklet, I turned it into an iPad. So I designed the front and the back to look as if you were holding a real iPad. So the front of it looked like what you would look on your phone or your iPad if you were playing music. So I had like the album up and then like a song, then I had it playing. And I said, now playing blah, blah, blah. And on the inside, then later I showed like a playlist that was inside like Apple Music with everyone's songs added in it and explaining why they loved that song and what it meant to them. And throughout the whole thing, it was like you skipped over just the elements of like what you would see on your phone. I added into the newsletter. And to this day, when I look back at that, I'm like, wow, like I thought to do that first. Like anything else, all my other ones were okay, but this one was it for me.
Right.
But I was so proud. I was like, I thought to do that one first, and all my other ones were like okay because I had other projects that I was doing. I was just rushing to get them done. But this was my first one, and I want to make a statement that we're changing from this designer to this designer. I'm doing it. So that was like my favorite one that I've ever made. But one personally that I loved doing, I think I like my photography more than I do my graphic design personally.
Really?
I think I really do because I think photography holds a special place with me because my mom taught me. And my mom was the photographer in our family. And I kind of took that on from her. She doesn't really take photos anymore. And it's funny, she was playing with my camera the other day and she had no idea how to use it. So I had to teach her. But,
tables have turned.
Yeah, she's like, I don't know how to focus this anymore. And then, like, plus, you know, when you get older, your eyes and everything get bad. But I think I really like taking my pictures more than I do, like, say, creating logos or anything for anyone. I mean, they're cool, but I always go back and want to change something. I'm never satisfied.
Yeah.
But when I take the picture, I'm like, oh, that's it. Like, that's it. And I took that moment, and we captured that moment forever.
Yeah.
And with designing a logo or a flyer, I'm like, I'm going to go back and change it because my mind now changed. My perception has now changed. Or my skills have now advanced. So I'm like, I can make this better because now I know something to fix it. So yeah, I'm like never really satisfied with any of my artwork.
I think that's like the biggest thing about being a creative, because I feel the same way, because, you know, on top of being youth pastor here over production team, it's like I'll go back and look at this and I'll edit the video and be like, man, I could have did this. I could have added this. Or even like last Sunday, we were listening to some of the worship songs that I mixed, and I'm like, that sounds terrible. Like, I'm listening to what we recorded in earlier 2020 to maybe a couple weeks ago, and it's like,
because your ear changed.
Right, ear changes, and like you kind of get more experience, and like you maybe might learn some new tips and tricks. And so it's interesting how much the creative world can influence and kind of move and change people. And like, you know, for some people that don't know are just kind of like, it's music, like it sounds good.
Yeah.
We're ready for an album, JR. Like, everything's good. Like, no, we're not. Like, we need to make sure this is mixed perfect.
Yeah.
But how much do you feel like, you know the old saying of a picture is worth 1,000 words. And even, you know, I'm not trying to claim to be a graphic designer in the slightest bit, but
I've seen some stuff. You can do it.
Oh, whatever. How important of a role does graphic design play in the church?
I think it plays one of the strongest. Like how we're all digital right now. That is the strongest component. And I think adding the graphic elements to it is also important because there's people that are visual learners or they remember because they saw a picture or something like that. So I think it's important that there is graphics that are out there to influence, because again, if you don't have a flyer up and it looks whack, I'm not going. I'm not attending. I'm not logging in.
Yeah.
So it's important that when you design something that you take away key points, or like you ask those key points, what do you want this to show? What's the message you want about it? What's the audience around it? Just pretty much what is this event about? And then that's really what I pull from, is that like I'll then write whatever it is. Like I kind of write a paragraph out of what it is. So then in my mind I understand the purpose of this event. So I can then add those elements into the design to make sure that even if there were no words, you looking at it, you know what this is about. You don't have to question it. But how important that is to church, it's very important, because our goal here is to save lives, to save souls, to bring people to Jesus. So it's important that we bring anything that is catchy or not too flashy, but something that's inviting,
appealing
for every age. It can be to the youth. What we put out to the youth is not going to be the same that we do to the general congregation. So that's why
I'm not gonna say no cap on the churches.
And then the elders are like, what does that mean? I can't wear my hat in
What
here?
does cap mean? No caps in church? Like, I don't understand.
It's like, it's disrespectful anyways. Let me take it off. Like, you know? So we can't do those certain things with certain audiences. So it's very important. I ask those questions when it comes to making things for the church. So.
Now, and I like the way that you like were talking about photography, and of course, when it comes to photography and even videography too, when you go to capture a moment, like not only are you telling the story of that moment, but you're telling the story the story of the person that was in that moment too. And I think a lot of people will look at like a church photographer and go, oh, well, they're just taking pictures, but not really. So it's interesting how I can take a picture of, for instance, like the last graphic he put out, I think of like inviting people to Sunday was Sarah. People that are Sarah's age, people that might be Latina, people that, you know, whatever, can relate to Sarah and go, wait, there's a millennial that's worshiping God in church during this time, and how important and how like needed that is. And like I crack up at how some churches will use like the stock photos. Like they don't go to your church. I'm like, just represent the people that you're catering to, because like even with like that's why I appreciate you and even like the work Alex does, where it's like, did you capture such great pictures of our youth, even the pictures you took of Mariah. It's just like, it's really important that it's shown, and that, you know, we can show people that during these times, there are people that are still worshiping God and trusting in God and doing all these different things. How do you feel like you can use your skills? How do you feel like you've been able to use your skills by serving in church?
Well, it's funny. I didn't want to use my skills. I remember I was forced into it by Jazz to be a part of the media team. And but when I first attended the church, I remember I was like, I'm not telling anyone that I'm a graphic designer, because they're gonna ask me for things. Like, I'm not telling anyone anything. But someone told Kaya that I'm a graphic designer, and then all of a sudden, Justin Hamilton was like, "Can you make me a flyer?" And I'm like, how did you know I do this? Like, I was like, who told you? But I made the one, and I told him, like, I'm just gonna make the one. I'm not doing this for everyone. I'm just doing it for you because we have a relationship. So I made one, and it's funny. I gotta go back and find it, because I think I
was about to ask you, what was it?
It was Get Lifted. That was on the flyer.
Early ELEV8.
And that was the very first one that I did. And then after that, then Kai was like, can you make this for the women's event and all this stuff? So it wasn't like officially like I was serving. It was just kind of like one-offs that I was doing. And then the entire time I was in the children's ministry, because they were very low on people. And I wanted to be in there because my nephew was in there. So I was like, let me watch what he's doing, but then at the same time, I just watch all these other kids. And that was not for me. She was not for me. But I remember it was a Tuesday when we were doing iServes. And it was like, we didn't tell nobody it was an iServe. You come in for Bible study, but it's an iServe. And I was like, I'm not going to any of these tables. I don't want to I don't want to serve. I felt at that time in my life, I didn't want to commit to anything. Like to anything. I wanted just to have the freedom to do whatever it is that I wanted to do. And I felt like if I committed to the church, then I'm stuck here. And I owe them my life or whatever. Like I'm signing my life away if I do that. And I remember that night at iServe, I'm sitting somewhere in the corner. And Jazz runs up to me. She was like, "You're going to be part of my team." And I went, "I'm already part of the children's ministry. I can't. I'm sorry." Like, I was telling her no. And I was just in one ministry. It wasn't like I was doing a bunch of things.
Just getting your feet wet.
Yeah. And she was like, "No, you're no longer doing that. You're going to be a part of the media team." So she went and told the leader at the time that was in charge of children's ministry that I was no longer going to do it. I went, "Oh, okay, so this is what's happening."
Right.
And literally the next Sunday, or the next Tuesday, she was training me to do it, and I've been on the media team ever since. And it evolved into all of this.
Yeah.
It evolved into being really doing the announcements for church, and then it turned into me, just doing the photography. I did a women's event just because I wanted to build my portfolio. I was like, "Kai, just let me do one." And it was one of her 3-day women's events. And I was like, dang, I'm going to be so tired and so busy, and it's just me, and I'm going to need help. And at the time, I didn't know anyone else in church that did photos. So I asked my mom. My mom came and helped and with that event, and it turned out really good. Like, all the photos turned out really good. But that was like the start of it. And then I just kept doing it, and I kept praying to God, like, I want someone else to come and help me with all of this, because it's just me, because a lot came on my shoulders at once I started showing all my skills. And I prayed, and the next day, Liz comes up to me, she's like, "My daughter does it, Alex." I was like, "Yay!" So Alex came and helped me with photography, but my prayer is still, I need another person to help me with graphic design. Not necessarily it's a need right now, but it would be great to, get a youth or someone that shows interest that they really want to do it.
I don't know what that was.
But serving the church really showed me, like, I really not just like doing this, I love doing this. And if I didn't do it, I'd feel like, okay, my life kind of doesn't have any meaning or doesn't feel complete because I'm not doing something that completely fulfills my heart.
Right.
Like, I can go off and do a different ministry, but I'm just going to be like, I'm going to get restless in it and not want to do it. But I can be back there for however long you need me, or I could be at home like I do now, just creating graphics, just getting them all out. I can sit there for hours and do it and not feel like I'm wasting my time.
This is a question I've been asking over the past couple weeks. If you were to tell 17 or 18-year-old Jackie, the Jackie just getting out of high school, any piece of advice, if you were to give her any tools that she would need for her future when it comes to her career, what would you tell her?
I would tell 17-year-old me that I need to surround myself with people that are going to support me, that are going to speak life into me, because I didn't have that. They were probably speaking to me, but wasn't like that positive motivation to figure out what the heck you want to do. It was like, okay, let's go to the movies, or like something that wasn't pushing me towards my future. And if I had like maybe one or two people that was like, let's figure this out together. Like, you need to do this. You're great at this, so why don't you explore that? Someone in my corner to tell me that. I think I would have jumped on all of this earlier. And I'm not saying like I regret my path at all. I don't.
Right.
But I think if I had maybe one or two people that did that and said like, no, you need to listen the first time when you took the aptitude test. This is what you're supposed to do. But I think if I had that, then I think I would be set up a little bit better. But then also, our youth have a great advantage of having a youth ministry.
Right.
Because I didn't have that. I didn't have a place to go to where someone was going to speak, again, life into me and speak about God to me and what my purpose is and discovering what my purpose is. Because if I was serving in the church back then, I think that would have changed everything for me. Just because, again, I would have tapped into it earlier or figured out my purpose much earlier than I've been making much longer strides now, I think. So that's what I would tell myself.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we got a really good lesson today on making sure that you're serving.
Yes.
So when the opportunities do come up, you guys, listen, it's really important. You know, there is definitely, absolutely a spiritual side when it comes to serving, but there also is a practical side. You can learn practical skills by serving in the church. You never know. You might be a mix engineer. You might be, I don't know, Mr. Security Man of the world. I'm just throwing stuff out there. But in all seriousness, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you, Miss Jackie, for tuning in with us and enlightening our youth on what it's like to be a graphic designer. You know, changing the world, doing different things, one poster at a time. But make sure that you guys subscribe to our YouTube page. Make sure you follow us on Facebook. Your parents, I know you don't have Facebook, so stop leaving me text messages. I don't have Facebook. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. Do all the things you need to do. Also, make sure that you find your leaders on, you know what? Just for the sake of it, I'm going to put up that graphic that we have. Guess who made it? Jackie made the graphic. Make sure that you follow your leaders on social media and follow them on the Bible app. Get to reading your Bible, kids. I know times is hard. Yeah.
I've been like, nope, I'm going to request you.
Right, exactly. I've been digging through. And what sucks too is I don't have the notification set on my phone right. So I just added 15 of y'all just recently. So I apologize, but we'll be back on there. And I promise I'll be reading my Bible.
Yeah.
But anyways, go with God, you guys. Hopefully see you next week.